And you're a senior clinician, professor, and associate director, and a researcher at the Einstein Center for Babies, Toddlers and Families, a program that Robin Hood is really proud to support.
Thank you.
The mission of the center is to help young children whose families are in crisis. They're in severe crisis. Crisis so severe, people have termed it toxic stress. The families are under stress, and we see this, the effects of this stress most poignantly in the terrible stories of child abuse and neglect that we hear in the media. For these children, this stress has terrible consequences. It affects their development, it sets them back from their peers, and ultimately it affects their success in life because it affects their success in school.
Right.
These kids come to you in a variety of ways. Is that true? They come from the family courts, they come from pediatricians, and often they come based on word of mouth. They've heard from other families who have gotten great help from the center. The causes of this crisis come from a variety of sources, but I'd love to hear from you. What lies at the root of all of this? What's the cause and effect here?
You know, Deb, I think that when we think about working with young children, we have to think about working with them in the context of their families. And for many of the families that we work with, the parents they've had their own histories of what we call adverse childhood experiences. So as children, they were not cared for, loved, or protected, or made to feel special. Unfortunately, many of them were exposed to different types of neglect, abuse, and what's often characterized as household dysfunction. So really, if we want to change the lives of young children, we have to work with their parents. We have to really foster this secure parent-child attachment from the moment these babies are born. In some cases, even before they're born, we can start working with parents who have had what we think of as adverse childhood experiences in their own childhoods.
So it sounds like you're talking about the intergenerational transmission of crisis, in essence. You mentioned this ACE phenomenon. So you said ACE stands for adverse childhood experiences. Parents have gone through those as well and carried them forward into their own parenting. So how do you get at that? What's the approach? What do you do?
Well, you know, Deb, I think for anybody who's familiar with the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, I know the first time I heard about this study, it was at a talk, I couldn't write fast enough. What the presenter talked about when he spoke about what's called the ACE study is that people who have had 4 or more adverse childhood experiences have a much greater likelihood of engaging in health risk behaviors, which then lead to physical health problems and mental health problems throughout the lifespan. So, you know, these 10 categories of adversity are, and you can count them on your hands and remember them. There's 2 categories of neglect, there's 3 categories of abuse, and there's 5 categories of household dysfunction. So to kind of go through them, what they are, when we ask people about their adverse childhood experiences, we say, during your first 18 years of life, how often did a parent, step-parent, or other adult in your home, so it's the home context, and the questions about neglect are emotional neglect. During your first 18 years of life, there was someone who made you feel special, loved, or important. If parents answer that that did not happen for them, that counts as an adverse childhood experience. Physical neglect, having to wear dirty clothes, having no one to take you to the doctor, not having enough to eat, that counts as physical neglect. The 3 abuse categories, people are more familiar with those. Psychological abuse, though. During your first 18 years of life, how often did a parent, step-parent, or other adult in your home curse, swear at, or put you down? Physical abuse, we know what that is. Being hit, having things thrown at you, having marks left on you, and sexual abuse, having someone touch you inappropriately or having you touch them inappropriately. The 5 categories of household dysfunction are, one being living with parents that are divorced or separated, that counts as one. Living with parents with mental health problems or parents who've attempted to commit suicide. Living with parents with drug or alcohol problems. Living with parents who are incarcerated, or being exposed to domestic violence. So if you have 4 or more of those 10 categories of adversity, you're more likely to have, and it's unbelievable, you're more likely to have cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, bone fractures, in addition to mental health problems. People who have more than 6 of them, studies have, some of the ACE researchers have found that those people are more likely to die. Their longevity will be 10 years shorter. So when I heard about this study, I was really floored. I thought, now the parents I'm working with who are coming to our clinic telling us at intake, I want to be a different kind of parent. I want to do something different than my own parents did. I thought, they've told me anecdotally about their child abuse, but I bet that they have at least 4 adverse childhood experiences. Really understanding with parents that their own histories of child adversity may affect how they come to the task of parenting their own children.
You talk a little bit about what you see in the field, the families that you talk to, and do they actually prove this out for you, or what are they telling you?
Mm-hmm. You know, parents come to us for help when they've been referred because someone in some agency, in a pediatrician's office, sometimes in a child welfare office, will notice that there is some disruption in this parent-child relationship. And the field knows, based on attachment theory, that a secure parent-child relationship can provide some buffer against the stresses that we all experience in our lives. The absence of that really proves to set children up for a trajectory where they have difficulty regulating themselves. They have difficulty calming themselves down. Their parent is not providing that buffer. So for many of the parents that we're working with, they didn't experience that. So they come to us with this hope of how are we going to do this differently. Then when the child shows up for school, the child knows, Mom or Dad have brought me here. This place must be okay. And that's why our intervention really, at Einstein, we really believe the earlier the better to intervene with young children and families.
So let's talk about what that looks like in a specific clinical setting with a family. They've come in, the parents have demonstrated their own background of adverse experiences. You see this pattern of affecting the child. What do you actually do as a clinical matter? How do you intervene? How do you build back what wasn't there?
The group attachment-based intervention, GABI, looks very much like a Mommy and Me program infused with therapeutic action. So we'll sing to a child, we'll stop and we'll sing to a child, where is Sophia? There she is, how are you today? And we have the parent respond. And then we ask, where is Sophia's mom? There she is, how are you today? And moms will often say, or dads, I'm stressed, I'm hanging on by a thread. And we'll say, okay, we'll talk about that more during our parent group time. We'll say, can you play? And they'll say yes or no. And sometimes we'll say, you know how the song goes, play with us, play with us. We'll say, try and play with us. Because we're understanding where parents are right at this point in time. So that beginning parent-child part, after we do this welcome song, each parent and child go to a different section of the room where myself, one of the other clinicians, or some of our psychology or social work externs and interns, graduate students, work with them. And what they're really trying to do is just help them be together. Because for a parent and a child to be together, that's a relationship. Handling some of the frustrations of a child not wanting to do something, not going right, that's how we develop a relationship with a child, just being with them.
What's the outcome? When they leave you, what does that child, how do you characterize how that child and that family looks?
That the parent is able to keep their child in mind, that their child knows that there is someone who is bigger, stronger, wiser, who's going to help them know that they are made to feel special, loved, and important. That what they have to say about their emotional experiences, that they're going to be understood by someone. So when that child goes to school, he's going to expect the teacher's here to help me. And children who build those, have that early emotional experience of knowing that their parent, and in turn other adults to whom the parent sort of turns over the care of their children, whether it's the people at the daycare or the people at a school, that children begin to see, if mom and dad trust this person, I can relax, I'm going to be taken care of, and I can have my psychological energy to learn and to explore and do creative things. So it's like giving kids these secure roots so that they can be free to explore and learn.
So Anne, this work puts you right on the front lines of poverty in New York City. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing that really kind of keep you up at night?
I think the difficulty for the families right now that I'm seeing is the rise in homelessness and food insecurity. I've never, in my years, and I've been at Einstein over 10 years, I have never experienced what I'm experiencing now, where parents come in and they'll say, I'm hungry. Do you have, I didn't have breakfast. My food stamps got cut. And yes, we can give them, and we do, we provide them lists for places to go, food pantries. But in the moment, we had our receptionist walked through the waiting room, and a parent said, are you going to throw that out? Because if you're not, could I eat it? I've never seen that kind of hunger before. So we can do better than that. We're not going to give the families our leftovers. What we can do, though, and we've been able to do it with the help of Robin Hood, is provide a mini food pantry where we can give people oatmeal, soup, give kids oatmeal on a cold morning, fill baby bottles up, have diapers on hand for people who've run out or just not grabbed all the stuff they need to have when they left their shelters, so that we can solve the problem right in the moment. But that, you know, the food insecurity and the homelessness are things that, and the stagnation in the homeless system. It used to be, several years ago, people went into a shelter and pretty soon afterwards they were able to get a permanent home. We're not seeing that. We're seeing people staying in homeless shelters for much longer periods of time. And it's very difficult. Some of them are not cooking facilities. Some are, some aren't. But having small children and not being able to cook is something that we're seeing that I would say tugs on us to have people, because food and shelter, those are the most basic things that we need to survive. And seeing that the weakness in that system right now is, when you say keeps you up at night, that could be one of them.
So even against that added adversity, these families are still coming to help their children. That gives me a sense of hope. But I want to ask you, what gives you a sense of hope against this backdrop?
That's it, Deb. They come in the morning with their babies bundled up because they want to be different. And I say to them sometimes, yes, we're doing research, but for me, the best comparison group is look at this parent and look at this child. Are the kids okay? And the parents always will say to me, well, she's having a better childhood than I had. That's the end of the story. If the children are doing better than the parents, and the parents can see that, and because of the parents' efforts, these children are doing better, sometimes the parents say, like, I wish I had me as a parent. You know. And I said, I know, wouldn't that have been great? But this little guy has you as a mom, and his life's going to be different just because of that. That's what, you asked what keeps us up at night? That's what gets us up in the morning.
And thank you for spending time with us and sharing the work of Einstein Center for Baby, Toddlers and Families. We're really proud to support your work.
Thank you. Without the support of Robin Hood, we would not have been able to help the families that we're helping at this point. So thank you, Robin Hood.